Good morning, everyone. My name is Marsha Wood. I'm from the Rotary Club of Baby Sunrise. Thank you so much for attending this diversity, equity, and inclusion session. We welcome you. The purpose of this session is to provide Rotarians with tools and ideas that they can take back to their communities to ensure their membership reflects the communities that they serve. I would like to share a quote from Rotary International on their stance on diversity, equity, and inclusion. As a global network that strives to build a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change, Rotary values diversity and celebrates the contributions of people of all backgrounds, regardless of their age, ethnicity, race, color, abilities, religion, socioeconomic status, culture, sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity. Now I would like to introduce the moderator for this panel, Ms. Carmen Landy. Carmen Landy is the executive director she's the chief executive officer, let me get that correct, of Helping Hands Incorporated, an agency committed to enriching the quality of life of children and families through a continuum of services from a shelter for abused children to community-based service. She has served as co-president of Baby Sunrise Rotary and assistant governor of Area 8. Carmen is currently pursuing a doctorate in mass communications at the University of South Carolina in Columbia. She is the founder of Landy Dynamic Solutions LLC, a consulting firm which focuses on capacity building and training for nonprofit agencies. She is also a certified professional and executive coach. Her goal is to use her talents as a successful national trainer, a grant writer, public speaker, teacher, mentor, also mentor to Rashida, and coach to serve her community and help others reach their fullest potential. And with that, I introduce Ms. Carmen Landy.
That's amazing. And hey, you're on music, but I didn't get any any big introductory music or anything like that, my friend. Hey, Hatchel in the room, but it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. So listen, this panel is very near and dear to my heart. We're really excited about being a part of this. But what I want to do up front is just kind of clear the air. This is not a panel about race. This is not a panel about gender equality. This is a panel about inclusion. It is a panel about how we can walk the talk. Rotary opens opportunities. I just came out of a bright yellow door, right? And Rotary has opened so many opportunities for me as an individual, as a first generation in my family to have a graduate degree, as an African American, as a female, as the first person in my family to do doctoral work. Rotary has been a part of that journey for me, and it has helped to open those doors. And so what we want to do is make sure that this opportunity exists for so many other people to come. So we've got this great panel in front of us, and it's just really exciting to have everybody here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at my left and have each one of our panelists, starting with Annie, to introduce themselves. And tell us, first of all, your name and your club, and the size of your club, and we'll just start there.
Hi, I'm so overjoyed to be with you guys this morning. My name is Annie Mertens, and I am with the Greenville Breakfast Rotary Club. We're the little club who came with 16 members, and I've been part of it since March of 2021. So thank you for having me.
Welcome, Annie.
Good morning, Chantel Babb, and I am with Rotary Club of Greenville. We meet right downtown West Lansing Club. We're a club of about 220-ish.
So,
I'm Allie Van Dyke. I'm in the same club as Chantel. See, that was easy.
you had extra time, and you could have done anything. You could have sang a song.
I
You
just
could
pick back up.
Yeah. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alicia Smith. I'm with the Clemson Sunrise Club, and we have about 35-ish members.
We We know what that 35 is just like, right? All of us in club leadership.
But it's funny because Alicia leaned over to me, because I'm also the incoming president. I said, well, got 40 on the roll, but that renewal's coming up. So COVID is still having some.
There's that ish, that 35 ish, yeah.
Anyway, I'm Christopher, you're also.
Awesome, Chris. Just welcome all of our panelists, and I want to just start with applause for them and thank them for coming. Just bring you an array of club sciences to help you understand what diversity, equity, and inclusion can look like in your club, no matter what size it is. We've started so clubs as small as under 20 to clubs up to 220. And so I think that meets the criteria of just about everybody. And the idea is that we all can do something. So Chris, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about what your club has done along the lines of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and why you did it?
Hello. I thought that wasn't going through the speakers. We actually did a number of things, but the very first one was what we call a listen and learn session, which is probably the most important starting point, I would say. We're blessed to have a number of people of color that are part of our club, Alicia being one of those. And we had this immediately after the killing of George Floyd, which I think, I'm thrilled that you said it's not about diversity and inclusion, it's about so much more, but that was the catalyst, and it certainly was a racial issue, and that was the catalyst that started our club's activity, and that listen and learn where our minority members really were very frank, discussing some tough topics, some very uncomfortable experiences that, I'm the old white guy up here. I see more faces like me than I do the other. And we've all had challenges in our life. We usually only share those with our family. And these people were generous enough to give us the firsthand experiences of some of the unpleasant circumstances they've had to navigate. That led to us changing our name, which sounds like a really big deal, and it was. But if you are really from South Carolina at all, but certainly in the upstate around Clemson, you know the name John C. Calhoun. And we were originally the Clemson Calhoun Rotary Club. And I knew that Mr. Calhoun has a number of disparaging positions and acts attached to his name. But it wasn't really until I heard the visceral unpleasantness that generates in our members. And they were candid. They said, I've reached out. Membership and the Rotary Foundation are the two engines that chug our train. And not just our club, I'm saying Rotary International. And they had some potential members that was a stumbling block for them. And so we took, and it was unanimous in our club that we became Clemson Sunrise Rotary. The next things we did is we showed really diverse speakers. Specifically, we had a gentleman come offer what does a Muslim look like? That's certainly an underserved population that we need to overcome stereotypes. Freddie Stowers is the first African American to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor, and we had a ceremony specifically acknowledging his place, and he is actually a family member, one of our club members. And then I believe the culmination, because we started planning this, because after the listen and learn session, we formed the Racial Harmony Committee, and that committee together culminated at the end of the year a racial harmony event, inviting the whole community. I think maybe this battery is dying. Is that what? Now it's just cutting in and out. And that will become an annual event. So while it's called Racial Harmony, I became aware of a day that I did not know. There is a day for the racial discrimination. that better? Wow, yes.
Kind of makes you want to do something else, right? Yeah,
I gotta,
Open mic
I
like
gotta figure
that.
out how far away to put it.
yeah.
Anyway, so each year, we're gonna have an annual gathering of the community. And it will still be racial harmony. We may change it to community harmony as we go further because there are other elements. But it will be on that designated day in observance of the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination.
And so, Chris, those activities, you have questions for you and for Alicia here. Alicia, what do you think those activities, what kind of benefit do you think that those activities brought to your club? If you let Alicia answer that.
Speaking from someone who has been a member of the club since 2018, it brought great benefit. The community was very open. And at that time, as Chris mentioned, being one of the African-American members who did talk candidly about the impact of the George Floyd murder, as well as the other issues and crimes and issues that were happening to people of color. This was an opening and an eye-opening experience for all of us, because when the club said, "We hear you, we support you," and the first thing we did was change our name, that spoke volumes. There was no hesitation. I think the leadership at that time, our president, who I always give a lot of credit to because he reached out, Tom Von Cano, he reached out to us and asked if we were okay. And so in doing that, led us to develop the committee, and then we reached out to the rest of the community. And so they were real pleased. That event was attended, had a great attendance. Beth Paget was one of our speakers, our district governor, so she was there. So she witnessed it. We had members from all ethnicities, different backgrounds of our community that we were trying to touch. So at that time when we had the event, it was also at a time where there were crimes being committed against Asian members of the population, just because of the fact that with COVID-19, they were being targeted, and that incident in Atlanta had occurred where the individual went and had killed the individuals at the different spas. And so we reached out to that community, and at that time they were so thankful, and they showed out in droves. They came to the event and was very appreciative. So it's just been very beneficial. One thing we did also do is we touched our children. We provide them with books, and those books were of different ethnicities, authors, so that they could see individuals that look like them in the stories. So that was also very enlightening. So we actually received publicity because there was a article in the newspaper that talked about the work of our club, that publicized what we were doing. And so our community is, there's still a lot of work to be done, but we are headed in the right direction. And I think it's been very beneficial.
That is outstanding. I think what's really important of what you just described is that y'all really touched both different age groups and different ethnicities, and we tried to really look at religious diversity as well. And I think those are all three areas I think we can all kind of discuss very openly. So Greenville Breakfast. Tell us a little bit about what you all are doing for in your DEI efforts.
Does this work? Okay, there we go. All right. And I apologize, you guys. I have notes on my phone because I am, in fact, a digital transplant who's adopting the digital lifestyle. So I've got notes, so I'm not looking at my phone to be rude. I'm just looking at it to make sure I'm hitting my high notes. But the Greenville Breakfast Rotary really started on a DEI journey before I ever entered the club. I had actually been welcome to speak about some DEI issues in December, and two of our members, Tom Faulkner and Alicia Brewster, had actually gone through the groundwater basic training from the Racial Equity Institute in Greensboro, North Carolina, and had a wonderful experience with that, and decided they wanted to speak with civic leaders to bring some of that training into Greenville. I want to back up and say that what I found about the Greenville Breakfast Rotary Club was something that really resonated with my spirit, which was an operating viewpoint that the American journalist Tanya Mosley states, which is that diversity is a fact, inclusion is a practice, and equity is the goal. And that is something that I live my life from, or try to live my life from, and I saw that occur at the Greenville Breakfast Rotary.
Okay, stop. Say it again.
It's from the American journalist Tanya Mosley, and the quote that she has written, an aphorism that she shared with others, and which I really want to internalize and share with others, is that diversity is a fact.
Diversity is a fact.
Inclusion is a practice.
Inclusion is a practice.
And equity is the goal.
Equity is the goal. How big is that? And thank you for sharing that with us, because I just think that underlines a lot. And I didn't mean to do that to you, because I know that was a little uncomfortable. But I really need the people to hear that. Go ahead.
No, I'm glad you did, because when I first heard that, I thought that's what it is. We can't achieve equity in a community or in a society if we're not thinking intentionally about how to include the perspectives of others. And what I loved was the Greenville Breakfast Rotary said, let us listen to everyone who's got something to say. People who've always had voices, people whose voices have been not necessarily highlighted. Let's listen. And so through that groundwater basic training, they decided that would be a great thing to bring to Greenville and more inclusive theaters, especially after the murder of George Floyd and how that was really crystallized as a need in our community. But we've been doing this work before some of the tragedies of last year. And some of that work included having fellowship with Girl Up Greenville, which seeks to empower and enrich and educate the lives of girls from under-resourced communities. Also with Tanglewood Middle School, which has a history of some underrepresentation as well and some under-resourcing as well. So really, this has been something that's been inherent to the Greenville Breakfast Rotary Club for a while. And again, as I said, really crystallized after some of the events of last year. And our hope is that this groundwater basic training we can bring into these partnerships that we have with Girl Up Greenville and with Tanglewood Middle and other really wonderful organizations. And so that's some of the work that we're doing. But I think it really does again speak to that aphorism. We are intentionally being inclusive. We really want to see equity as something that is a realistic and achievable goal, not performative, but something that really does amplify and provide a platform for those who have maybe not had them forever. And I'm saying I'm a lot. I usually don't, so I'm a little nervous about that, I guess. But what I will mention is we've got people who are really committed to this work and really believe in this work. We are very excited about the possibility of bringing the groundwater basic to some of our partners, and it's a real joy to be part of this organization, part of Rotary International, and see how it really has been embraced as something to work toward. And what I will mention at the very end here is once we are working towards equity by being intentionally inclusive and by honoring and thinking about diversity as a fact that adds beauty and richness to our lives, we create a sense of belonging. And that is really important to a social and civic organization, is that sense of belonging, being part of something. And we want to make sure that Rotary, especially Greenville Breakfast Rotary, provides belonging for anyone who wants it, that people are welcome and belong. We know that when someone feels as if they belong to something, that's a protective factor from other social ills. We know that when people feel like they belong to something, that increases their self-worth and their joy in life. So I love that we are working on these DEI initiatives, thinking about inclusivity intentionally, striving for equity, and really hoping to create a sense of belonging at Greenville Breakfast Rotary and within Rotary International.
Right, Amy. Let me tell you, so like I'm not a social worker, but like she said, all the stuff that made all of my neurons go crazy. Like but the inclusion, and you said a lot of things that really resonated with me. And one of those things is that it's not performative. It really is about adding richness and a mosaic to your club. So Greenville, talk to me about what you guys are working on.
So Ally and I need to visit these other clubs.
We all do, we all do. Annie's coming to visit every club in the district with the governor next year, yeah.
Because they've got a lot of great things going on and they have for some time. And one of the things that I mentioned when asked to be on this panel is, please don't present us as some type of experts on DEI or that they're long-time DEI practitioners. We have it, we're self-educated. So I'll speak for myself, I'm sorry. So my work with DEI and what led to doing this for the Rotary was an organization called Diamond for Women, and now the name has changed to Together Women Rise. But I served on the DEI panel for the national organization, and it just fueled the passion for inclusion. And so Jane Dyer, fearless, outgoing leader, I can call her Madam President for 4 more days, of our club, came to me and asked that if I'd be interested in leading a DEI committee, and I said, I absolutely would, but I cannot be the lone Black voice of diversity at my club. I must have a co-leader who does not look like me. And Ally was willing and able and stepped up, and she can tell you a lot more of the details of what we're doing. She's amazing. So I'm going to pass the mic and upset you.
So I am one of those millennials that a lot of people don't love.
We love
And
you.
thank you.
Love you, girl.
I will say that Rotary was the first meeting environment where my youth was celebrated. Usually it's like, oh, you don't know very much. Let me tell you something about life, you know? And I'm like, well, I've lived a little bit. I know a little bit. And so that was the first thing I recognized about the club. We are the first co-chairs of the first ever diversity, equity, and inclusion committee in our club, which we believe should have been started earlier, of course, but are happy that it's happening.
There was some other work going on. Marie Murphy can tell us about that work. So I thought we were first, but I don't think we were at that pageant straight.
Okay, perfect. Then good, skip that. So on to what we've been doing. One of the things that, because I am a millennial, I did not grow up in a world like many of you. Diversity and equity and inclusion were celebrated since I can remember. In middle school, nobody was really weird. It was like you kind of want to be the weird one because they're actually cool. And it was kind of backwards. And so when I come into a club like this at this size, I was already acting like that and then realized that that's not how everybody else thought about our neighbors. And that is a little bit of a letdown, but it's awesome that we get to do something about it. One of the things that are, we have a club of a little over 200 people. That means we have all of those opinions. And we will admit that there has been a little resistance in what we're trying to do and the conversations that we're trying to have, because like you've probably experienced, there are people out there who don't think that there's a problem with what's going on in the world. They think every situation is isolated and that it's just bad apples everywhere, which we don't believe. I don't think many of you do either. So we believe it starts with having conversations first, because that's how you want to learn somebody's heart. That's how you're going to learn somebody else's experience. I learned a lot from Chantel because I have to, and because we're different, everybody's different. And I think there's power in learning other people's experiences so that you can hold that and then live out your life in a different way, which is shocking to me. So we started this, we had this event that was kind of all put together very quickly, but I just wanted to get people in a room kind of like this with round tables. And it was a recruitment event actually, but it was to target people who were interested in DEI, to show that we are all about this in our club. Please join our club because we need more people who are on this train with us. And so we were to invite folks who don't look like us, intentionally, with some intentionality. Let's include some other folks who may not be in the picture. So it worked out, and we had a lot of people come, and it was amazing. We sat around, and it was timed because there were a lot of people, so that it was timed. And then we had different topics and there were different questions. A lot of them were icebreakers at the beginning, and then it went into diversity, equity, and inclusion topics. And
there were a lot of things that people shared that I think surprised other people. One example that I can give is I was in a group, and one of the things that I just recently learned is how to buy a house. Complicated, never want to do it again. But I have learned through a lot of my research and reading books is that people of color, people who are basically not white, have problems getting loans. Well, I never thought twice about getting my loan because I'm white, my husband's white. We were applying for a loan. I got it. I never thought twice about what if I didn't get that loan? I wouldn't have a house. So I shared that with the group, and it was complete silence. My group was white, mostly. Well, there was one, yeah, it was white. So everyone was kind of shocked, and they were like, we didn't know that happened. And I was like, ask your friends who don't look like you if something like that's ever happened to them. And they did. And they had friends to ask, to text. And so it was kind of like that. We wanted to start that conversation that doesn't stay in this room, but leaves the room. And then people are able to talk about it with their friends, with their family. And I've had a lot of uncomfortable conversations with my mom lately about this because we have very differing opinions. That's not easy, but that's where it starts because we are all on this earth together. So we're going to have to learn how to have those conversations with each other. So that's what's worked.
Allie, that is great. I think one of the things that we are hearing from everybody is that intentionality is so important in this activity, is that we have to have the intention. And sometimes that feels artificial, right? And so I want to talk to you a little bit about intentionality and how you all brought that into the room and how your intentions helped your club. So how does your intention of bringing a different group of people together, a diverse group, benefit your club? Can either one of you address that from the Sunrise Club?
You know, I go, like I said in my first comments, I'm the lone white guy up here. And actually, interestingly enough, I wasn't going to be on the panel. Well, it's not a good idea to have a panel on diversity and not have a single guy up here.
Exactly.
And I was more than happy to do it. Openness always, it's not always comfortable, but openness always leads to better relations. Whether you're talking about your marriage, whether you're talking about a friend, whether you're talking about club members, when you can get past the superficial chit chat, which is great. I mean, the fellowship is one of my favorite things about Rotary. But when you can have those personal conversations, and I think that's one of the most tremendous tools we have available to us is make a point when you go to your meetings, if you have somebody that is not like you, whether that be as simple as saying, I'm a man and I'm going to sit with a woman that I don't know and talk to her experience, or whether they are from a different religious background, or whether they're from a different racial, cultural background, deliberately sit with them and ask. You know, what impact on the club? It's better harmony. I'm a musician, so that word harmony really resonates with me. So that would be my short answer. I'm trying not to ramble on.
Let me see what you think.
I think it's important because if we're not intentional, we ignore or those conversations are never had. We become complacent because a lot of times what we do is we want to stay with what's familiar and what makes us comfortable. So you have to be intentional because the conversations in some ways are uncomfortable. But until we deal with the uncomfortable, we can't get to a place to meet that goal of equity and to understand the importance of diversity, how important that is in those voices, and hear from others about their experiences. Because just as Annie, did I say that correctly?
Annie, yeah.
Said with the goal, the purpose, you know, you have to practice inclusion. That's why it's intentional, because you have to practice it. If you're not practicing it, then you'll never meet that goal. So I think for our club, being able to speak and talk about it, because then you build relationships. You tear down the barriers. It's about trust. If we can't have those conversations, we're not intentional. Will I trust in the goals? Do I trust the partnership, do I trust the people that I'm with? Because some things we just keep close to our, your circle. You only open up, and as my club knows, and I've said it to them time and time again, it took a lot for me to share and be vulnerable. And so when you're vulnerable, you want to know that you can trust that individuals will be authentic and be willing to allow that voice to be heard. So you have to be intentional because if not, we probably would never understand what's taking place.
Letting people understand that they can trust the environment that they're being vulnerable in, I think is very important. But in directing to this side of the stage, I want to know, we are a part of this kind of keeping it real thing where everybody is trying to be 100% authentic. So doesn't this intentionality, directly targeting people that don't look like you, does that not feel fake to you? Does that not feel unrealistic? I'm asking the challenging question because I know people are asking that in their head. Like, if I don't know people that are Asian in my circle and I call you and ask you to come to a Rotary Club, doesn't that feel fake? Y'all answer that for us. Tell us what your thoughts are. You don't pass the mic. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Don't be scared.
I thought I saw someone reaching for it. I wanted to be inclusive of opportunity. So again, I think that comes back to the idea of performative versus authentic. And I think it's a hard issue. If you're truly curious and want to understand the lived experiences of someone who doesn't share yours, whether it's from a language perspective, a racial perspective, an economic perspective, an age perspective, an ability perspective, I think it has to be a hard issue because it will feel fake if you aren't actually curious. And I think that it takes empathy to ask those questions in a way that conveys respect. Empathy, of course, is the ability to sit or experience or think about how someone else might feel in a certain situation. Big fan of empathy, big fan. And I think, it has to come from the heart.
Yeah.
And so it might take practice or it might take reading, it might take hearing snippets of information and stories and books and panels about why it might be interesting to learn about, again, people's experiences that aren't similar to yours, that you don't share. But once it becomes something that you internalize in your heart, I think it's hard not to want to say, tell me about where you grew up. Tell me about what your family was like. Tell me about your experiences and what fears you have. And as Chris said, that's the basis of relationships. When you form those relationships and you gain trust, that's really when the beautiful work begins. And that's what I would say.
That is a great answer. And I think listening to Greenville talk about how they just really kind of targeted just people that don't look like or experience like the way I experienced. Talk a little bit about your intentionality with that, how that felt, inviting people that were not like you.
Well, it's always been important to me, and maybe it's because of where I was raised. I was often the only person of color in a room, often the lone little black girl in a classroom. And so I don't know, I never want anyone to feel that they're not part of what's going on. So at parties, at events, at meetings, as a kid playing, I never like to see someone just sitting on the wall. So I've always invited folks in. And as I've gotten older and more intentional about it, I walk into your room, I'm a business developer, I work in sales. So often the folks.
Oh, so you just know everybody anyway.
Well,
yeah, you have that personality that's like, hey, everybody.
I'm an introvert by nature.
Are you? But by practice.
I play an extrovert on TV. This is what I do. But I often walk into rooms, for sales events, and they're only white guys. And I was going to join a club. It was a business club, and I went to the website. All white women, hundreds. Go to the event, 200 women there. There was myself as a person of color and one other, and she might have just had a great tan. 200 women, and only 2 of us were women of color. And that concerns me. I didn't join that organization because to me, it doesn't seem inclusive. Now, if I applied that same lens to our club, sometimes we would be disappointed.
Yeah.
But with the club, because it's service oriented, but I can make a difference here. I can serve while being inclusive and while sharing my passion.
And so lending that to, we're talking about Rotary, one of the main aims being world understanding, just understanding other people in the world. We're an international organization. And, we've got conventions, conferences all over the world. And so we're experiencing cultures, all kinds of cultures. So making sure that we are walking into rooms that look like what Rotary looks like as much as possible is really important. So you mentioned something that was particularly poignant to me when you talked about the way that you were raised, the way you grew up, and the weird kids in the room. So I want you to talk a little bit about what that feels like when you are in a room where there are no weird kids.
Yeah, I don't like to be in rooms like that. I think, well, just from the worldly perspective, I also recognize that I was born in Germany and raised in England. So I came to America like, hey, what's up? And everyone was like, you have a weird accent, we don't like you. And it was kind of like, that's kind of weird. I don't know what's going on. And so ever since then, I was like, I did know how it felt to be a little different, even though I could hide that. So as you can hear, I don't have a British accent because I taught myself how to not have one because I didn't want to be different. And so my husband is Jewish and he got made fun of a lot in high school as well. He knows what it feels like to be different, but we both can hide it. Our friends who, people of color, they can't hide it. And so when we did that whole thing about reaching out and is it intentional, is it not? I think it's, what are you asking? Are you asking a person of color to be in your group because you're trying to get your numbers up? Because that's really easy to pinpoint. When you're getting asked that question, I think it's easy to tell, do you want to know about me and do you value me and the perspectives I bring? Or are you trying to show that you're a diverse club so you can put your numbers on your website? Yeah. And I see a lot of that because DEI is this big hot topic right nowadays. And all these kind of younger CEOs and they're really into it and let's do this and let's do that. Let's put all these people in a room. What are you doing once they're in the room? So you're asking them those questions, about them.
So the international organization that decided that they were going to eradicate polio decades ago, and we're on the leading edge of that. And the organization that donates millions of dollars to Alzheimer's research and is really a catalyst in making things happen. Can we not lead something like this? Can we not look at not just the racial, because we talk a lot about ethnicity up here, but can we also look at whether or not, and I want you guys to address this, look at other ways that we are othering people in our clubs. I think that Chantel brought up walking into a room of women, being the only woman walking into a room of men, looking around and not necessarily feeling welcome, or walking into a room and being the only person of color. But imagine coming into a room in a wheelchair that needs 30 inches of clearance. I know that because my dad was in a motorized wheelchair for a long time. And not being able to get into a room because there's no ramp, so you can't join the club. Or imagine being hearing impaired and not being told that there is an opportunity to have a signer. Or imagine having a visual impairment and not being told by the club or feeling included because you need to go to the buffet and nobody helps you make your plate. So think about that. And this is the challenge to those that are sitting on the panel and those that are in the room as well. How do you look at and how do you see your club addressing these other issues other than racial? How do you see your club looking at accessibility? How do you see your club looking at the way that people who are differently able experience your club, whether it's gender, whether it's the way we bless our food, whether it's any of a number of things. And I know that, that in Jesus' name, it's a little bit like people have left clubs over that. But what are we doing to address those issues? And so Alicia, I'm going to start with you, only because you've gotten so vigorously, so I know you already have an answer for me. What do you think is the challenge for your club, or how do you think your club is meeting some of those challenges?
Those are very good questions. And I think that's an area that we will have to do more work in as our club. But I can say, you mentioned the prayer. One of the things that we did differently this year, instead of asking for opening prayer, we've given members the ability and the choice to either provide spiritual or inspirational words, a meditation of some sort, just something to get us started, to inspire the club at the beginning. So you do not have to open in prayer. So we wanted to make sure that we were inclusive in that manner.
Is prayer still an option?
It is.
Great.
It is still an option. So each member is, when it's their time, they decide how they want to provide that moment. And so I think that's been very, very, it's uplifting because we've gotten some very inspirational words at the beginning of our meetings. In terms of, and you brought up a key point because in my professional role, I work with ADA accommodations. I'm ensuring that we're accessible. And so I would say that as a club, that's an area that we will definitely continue to work and ensure that we're providing those opportunities because it is important to allow members who have the hearing impaired, and there are ways to be able to be a part of that. We had to do Zoom this year as part of the week during COVID. And so being a part of that, we actually identified other ways to engage members to be a part of the club. And so those are opportunities that we can use to be more accessible and using that. In terms of, like you said, making sure that individuals can enter the club if they're in wheelchairs. The locations that we choose are ADA accessible in that manner, so they can actually enter into where we need.
But I think it's important that you're intentional about that and not that it just so happens to be that way. Not that it just so happens
To be that way.
You have to be intentional about making sure that you are accessible. So it's really great.
But we do have still work. I won't say that we are, the experts in that area, but you brought up some very key points that I think as a club, we would definitely want to.
I think it's important for us to all acknowledge that we have lots of work to do. Talk to us, Greenville, about, see, I switched up on you, Greenville. Talk to us a little bit about, what ways you might be addressing those other non-racial equity issues.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Chantel and I haven't really talked about that much because we thought, let's get over the biggest, most obvious hurdle that we have right now, which did involve race and something that we were both passionate about and what everything was going on in the world, the books I was reading, the books she was reading. So my eyes are opened, absolutely. And I plan on drawing from my experience, but my husband's experience, he's a physical therapist. So his whole life is giving to people like that. And I would love to ask his opinion on how to help do that.
And I'm sure that our club leadership has taken all of this into consideration because there are folks who come to meetings of our club in wheelchairs.
Yeah.
These older folks, so accessibility definitely has been a discussion.
Grateful breakfast. Anything to add?
I really appreciate that we're talking about other diversity dimensions beyond, again, race and esteem. It's what you said, Carmen, really resonated too. I will share that my older brother, who's brilliant and successful, when he was younger, actually used a wheelchair due to a disability. And in Greenville in 1993, we were standing in, when I was standing in Burlington Coat Factory, towards Burlington Coat Factory, with my brother. At the time, he was not using the wheelchair for short periods. And he had gotten tired. And my mom said, is there a place for him to sit while he's exercising outside of his wheelchair? And Burlington said, no, he can go wait in the car. That was 1993, and a lot has changed since then. But I love that we're talking about, thinking about the built environment, how people get to meetings, how people experience meetings. And so one thing I'm really proud that the Greenville Breakfast Rotary Club is doing is meeting at Project Host for our breakfast meetings. One, to support people in our community who have not had the same access to opportunity that some of us have, and who are building their life skills for the Bobby Pierce, I think Bobby Pierce Culinary Center. They provide, we cook our food, we learn great transferable skills for the workforce. We're supporting them by meeting there. They do have wheelchair accessibility. We have screens so that when people are speaking, we have PowerPoints they're used for reading. But I think, none of us are experts, and I've already thought about ways we can become more inclusive and more thoughtful about, again, how folks experience our meetings. So,
And I think the aesthetic of walking into a room where there are opportunities to express your needs and have them met is just a really great step for our clubs. It's just to say, if you have a special need that you need us to help you meet in order for you to participate fully in this meeting, then contact this person so we can help make that need be met. So one last thing that I want to address is, and she's got a card up here, y'all, with the time on it. I'm trying really hard not to look at her. Okay? So one last thing I want to address, because Rotary is we serve, right? We are a service organization, but I want y'all to answer this question, and whoever wants to answer can answer. Is serving the same as inclusion? So serving a community, does that mean that you included them? You can serve without being inclusive. Talk about that. That was it? That was it? That's it? Yeah, you did.
It's one of those, I think, and I'm sort of thinking out loud. There was a thought going back to my head that I started to share a while back that I think is important to say when we're talking about uncomfortable conversation. They're not all going to end with a kumbaya moment.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to add is, don't let one uncomfortable conversation that didn't seem productive say, well, I'm giving up on this PEI. I think that's important.
That was worth it, Chris.
Sorry.
That was worth it.
One of my favorite.
Is serving the same as inclusion?
Yeah, you can be of service and not be inclusive. So I don't think they are the same. Do I think they should be integrated? Absolutely. I'm so glad we're talking about the spiritual / religious views, because that's critically important. I'd love to ask for a show of hands, but I don't know if that's.
You're not the boss of this, Chris. You're not the boss of this.
Then I shan't.
Yeah.
I
Ask the question here.
well, I'm just curious if we all put our hands up, how many people in this room ascribe to the Christian faith? Most of us. When we made this change, we said, we're not just going to do a prayer. We want the opportunity to have a moment of meditation. Or we actually have is he Buddhist or Hindu? Sorry. Anyway, he's not of the Christian faith, he's not of the Muslim faith, he's not of the Jewish faith. So these are, Christian Judaism, that's the core of our whole country. But that's not everybody. And in my view, and I think what should be our collective view, we do not diminish our own faith by allowing, respecting another person's faith.
Yeah.
I mean, I said I'm a Christian. I think Christ would be the one saying, he would be saying, so to one of my favorite things about Rotary is it's an opportunity to live out your Christian values within a secular umbrella. And so service should be inclusive, because that's will it build goodwill and better friendships.
There it is.
Doesn't say do we build goodwill and better friendships with this category of individuals.
Right.
So it should be, but it doesn't have to be. Some people, as you said, some people when they recruit just through the website, looks a little more diverse, and that's a tragically sad situation. You know, our hearts should be leading this, not our minds.
It happened again.
I think you can absolutely serve and not be intentional. I think one of the things that I learned growing up when you had you have to do all these service things to get into any college you wanted, just by the way. And I could choose where I served. I could choose the environment. I could choose all of these things. But what's interesting about intentionality is that the responsibility comes back on you to do the learning before you can actually be truly intentional. And I think that's the difference, is I can choose what I want to do and where I want to serve and do this and that, and I'm getting myself, but be intentional. People can reap what that's fate if you don't learn.
And I think I hear people talk about inclusion in a way. Do it again, Lisa. So, I think I hear people talk about inclusion sometimes in a way that says that we go into a particular community and do this work for this community, right? So how do we celebrate diversity? We go and we take food to the homeless shelter, right? But that's not inclusion. That's serving, but it's not inclusion. And I'm not saying that you need to have a club full of people who live in the homeless shelter, but I'm saying we need to make sure that we aren't equating the two to be the same. We need to think about that. Yeah, Alicia has something.
I was gonna say, but the real impact of inclusion is having a seat at the table. Being able to make decisions, being part of the conversation. And service is helping our fellow man, our fellow woman, whomever that may be. But inclusion means your voice is heard, you're part of the decisions, and it's not just about I held, but you are actually part of the solution.
That's exactly right. I think this is a great time for us now, because she gave me the yellow paper and now she's trying to give me the red paper. I'm not taking it. This is a great time for us to segue into questions. And so those folks that are expertly trained question takers are bringing themselves in position to bring mics. I see somebody in the back of the room that is wanting to ask a question. And this question could be for people on the panel. It could be for just general discussion. So all the way in the back of the room. And then I see Tom.
Greetings, I'm Bobby Bailey from Lancaster Rotary Club, which is the club of our upcoming district governor,
Clapping.
Joyce.
Yes.
All right. I don't believe that she doesn't know what I'm going to say. I don't believe you talk about what you do, but this is occasion because I want you to know what we've done in Lancaster. I met Alicia a few minutes before the program, and after meeting her, my comment was, why aren't there more men on this panel? And I wanted to add, why aren't there some black men on this panel? And I know Joyce knows that I do this kind of thing. I've been invited to several other organizations doing this. But let me tell you what diversity does and has been in our town. I was in my club, there were 2 black people before I came. I've been in about 17 years. Okay, I'm a retired principal, et cetera, et cetera. I've been in the club. I brought in this lady, Al Teresa. She's a pastor, she's an author, she does all kinds of stuff, and you'll get to hear her in the morning. I think she's involved tomorrow morning. I brought in Al Teresa, who brought in her daughter, who is in banking. Am I correct? Owns her own business, I'm telling you wrong. Yeah. All right. Then my buddy over here, Matt, you know I was gonna put you on the spot. Matt worked with my late wife at the University of South Carolina, and Matt directs the trio group. One of the best people I know, period, in life. Brought him in the club. Matt has brought another gentleman, am I correct, into the club. Now, let me add this. Al Teresa, although I brought her in the club, she was asked to be president. And she's the outgoing president of our club. They kicked me and said, you need to be president. So I'm gonna do it reluctantly, but I'm gonna do it.
I don't believe, Mr. Bailey, I don't believe this reluctant at all. I think you do it exactly.
Here's my question.
Yeah.
I'm doing all that to show you that diversity is not just something we sit around and talk about. Look, there are people out there who are wonderful people. We must be inclusive and not exclusive. You know, each one of these people have resumes you wouldn't believe. They've done things, but you got to know to go and get them. And last thing I want to say, the only reason, and I'm giving this, and I hope it doesn't offend anybody, the only reason that I'm accepting the presidency is because of my belief in diversity. And I want people who may not believe that some of us can really run the club. And that's why I'm doing it. My friends across the region, it's not gonna be a black club or a white club. We got friends everywhere. But when I come into a room like this, I look around and I say, how many people do I see that look like me?
Mr. Bailey, and you know, thank you so much. I thank you for your comments, but I think what you just described was a chain reaction, where people walk into the room and when they see people that look like them, it makes them want to be a part of what's there. They can see the good in the room when they start to realize that they are welcome in the space. And so there was a question up here first. I think Tom Faulkner had a question, and then we'll come right back to you in the back.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay. One thing that we've experienced, and I'd like to have the panel address this. Clearly, we're speaking about the danger of, let's increase our membership. And this is just a method of saying we believe in diversity, because we really are mainly interested in growing Rotary. But I think there's another reality that there are groups that are representing a specific minority interest who, when we reach out to them and say we want to establish more of a relationship with the kind of people that are represented in your group, that can be seen as a threat. And this question, I'm not sure how you all would respond to that. To me, the response is what Annie said about empathy and understanding what their vision, what their interests, what their priorities are, and determining whether we can help them with their priorities. But I wanted to just ask the panel, how do we approach that piece? Or how do they think about that piece?
So the introvert is ready. Yes.
Tom?
It is.
Okay, there we go. Tom, thank you for that. To that, I would say, I don't invite groups to Rotary. I invite individuals who I believe are like-minded for whatever they look like. Although I always look through an intentionally inclusive lens. I will say that, but doesn't matter. I invite people who I know are committed to service, who I think have something to bring. So if we just keep that in mind with individuals, and of course we want to grow Rotary, we have to be intentional. If Rotary is to grow, we have to think about it and be intentional about it. So I just would encourage you to continue to invite individuals of any group. And I don't think anyone would be offended by an invitation for whatever reason.
For the connection.
For the
for
connection.
the connection, and not necessarily because we're looking for members, but because there's a connection there. I think that is the difference, and it's the hard work that Annie was talking about. It's the connection. So in the back of the room, and then I see this outgoing president.
Thank you. Again, I'm Al Teresa Good Howard with the Lancaster Club. We are called the Lancaster Original Club. We do have the Lancaster Breakfast Club, but we were the sponsors of a lot of the other clubs because our club was established in 1980. But I have two quick comments and then a question. The comment, one of the comments, Allie, you had mentioned something, and some of the things that were even just been said, even from Bob and others, I believe it is very valuable for us to have these forums and to have this opportunity to even hear from other people. Because I believe that as we do that, we're able to open up and see greater how each one of us can have similarities, and even with our differences, how the more we can be empathetic as well as understand from someone else's position, and to be able to help in our world even better. And so, Molly, you mentioned something about the home buyers situation. Recently, my daughter, 31 years old, her husband just was in the process the last year and a half to purchase their home. Almost an 800 credit score. They own their own business. Different things happen. A week before closing, just the other week, they got information, a call from the underwriter said they were not going to be able to go ahead and close on their home because some of their income they were not allowing. And because of that, they assumed that because they were going to have to come up with a 10% down payment, they were not going to be able to close on their home. And so I encourage people not to just assume anything about anyone because you don't know with their situational circumstances or what they could possibly do. They were literally getting ready to go move on and sell their house to someone else because of that assumption, because they were 30-something-year-old African Americans. And they had to come up with $38,000 in a week.
Ms. Al Teresa, we're running short on time, so can I get you to ask your question?
Well, I wanted to say this, that with our club, as Bobby had said, we've been doing some things, and the first time that we've actually had in my club, where we have 3 African Americans that are following one another. I'm the first African American female of our club after being established since 1980. I wanted to find out from anyone in the organization on the panel or in the room, have you found, or what would you do, or have you even experienced where with the move that Rotary is having going forward, inclusivity, working on being intentional, what have you found or have you found, and what you would do if you have to have the situation of members not wanting to be a part of the inclusion or working towards being more inclusive and equity?
So what do you do if your membership decides that they don't want to be inclusive? Anybody have a quick answer for that? So I think the question was, I think the answer is that we have to ask the leadership of the particular clubs, but I think one of the things I think we can assume because of our district governor and those that are coming in is that we are committed to inclusion. And one of the things that as clubs we have to realize is that we cannot grow, Rotary cannot grow. Membership is an issue without diversity. We can't do it. And so we have to make sure that we are being as inclusive as possible as women are, that women are taking leadership roles, as different ethnicities and different cultural groups are taking leadership roles. We have to be inclusive. And I see other hands, which makes me really excited, but I've gotten the red card, y'all. I've gotten the red card. And you see what happened? I don't know if y'all ever seen the Apollo, but I feel like the Sandman is coming out. And I gotta be quiet now. But let me just say, I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate this panel for being open and honest with you guys today. And I appreciate your openness to hear the discussion, really hear it, I've been watching you and you've been paying attention. And I feel like your minds were open and your hearts were open to a different perspective on diversity. So I just want to thank you so much for being a part of this discussion. And then I'm going to begin.
And to all of the presenters, it was a very stimulating and thought-provoking discussion. And we know that you didn't have to be here this morning. So your decision to be with us and to speak and to on this sensitive topic sometimes is a tribute to your commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to your encouraging us to think about this level broadly and deeply, and to use the word that's been used so often this morning intentionally as well. You know, the yellow door, Carmen mentioned that the yellow door was opening a lot this morning. So I think what this panel with Carmen leading it, Rashika putting it together, I think what you have done is to encourage us to go back to our own clubs and to our own Rotary doors and to open them, all of them, not just the yellow one, but open all of them wider and wider. So thank you to Rashika Bush for putting this panel together, and to Chris, she's really good at like putting this out. I actually wanted to hear more from her. I thought she was great. So the next thing, I just wanted to share a couple of quotes with you that I think are relevant to the All-Star Club presentations that you're going to have a chance to listen to. And you've undoubtedly heard this one before. This is a translation of a Chinese proverb. If you're planning for a year, grow rice. If you're planning for a decade, grow trees. If you're planning for a lifetime, educate people. And another one that I had actually never heard before is this one. Teach the children, so it is not necessary to teach the adults. And that one, I think very eloquent and succinct, was from Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, well, I was surprised too. So I think for a lot of our clubs in District 7750, one of the ways that we choose to serve our communities is to look at our children in our communities and to try to improve their lives. And one of the ways that we often do that is through education, which, as you know, is an area of focus for the foundations. So the next 4 presentations that you're going to hear are focused on this, are focused on how we can improve our education and what we can do with our children to improve their lives. So the first one up is the Dolly Parton Imagine Library from the Rotary Club of Emerald City, and the presenter is Jerry Benz.
Let me see, click.
Okay, I am Jerry Rentz from Emerald City. And this is really just an update because I had the privilege of doing this several years ago. And we just felt like we wanted to give you an update because of what's been happening in our club and in our county. Dolly Parton has been a partner of ours now for 4 to 5 years. And she is the one who really initiated the foundation for what it is Dolly Parton's Imagination Library is all about. We in Greenwood County have, I guess we probably didn't really understand the importance of children's literacy until we embarked on this journey. And it has now not only become a Rotary project, but a truly community project. One of the things that you quickly realize when you begin to search out, talk to, and speak to some of the teachers, principals, early childhood developers of our children in our school district today. And I'm sure you seek out and search and speak to the same people in your county, you will quickly find out the impact of what is the most important thing in our neighborhoods today in the area of literacy, is ensuring that every child is read ready when they get to their early grades in school, first, second, third grades. After that, it's a journey that they never will catch up. And if you look at this, I've had the opportunity to serve in ministry in McCormick Correctional Institute for 32 years. And one of the biggest obstacles when you begin to speak to inmates about anything is their inability to read. And it's just an incredible obstacle to get them to be able to, for you to be able to leave them something that they can study or they can read. And that's what this first slide shows, that 60% of all the inmates in the U.S. prisons are functionally illiterate. That's 85% of the youth in the U.S. juvenile system is illiterate. And when you start, I just want you to want to read one thing. Because in our neighborhood, we make the news just about every week because of drugs, because of guns, because of violence, because of anger, because of aggression. And you continue to hear that just about every week, every day. It says reading failure correlates with the aggression in delinquent boys. No correlation between aggression and age, family size, number of parents present in the home, rural versus urban environment, social economic status, minority group membership, or religious preference. So reading proficiency at the end of the third grade is really a make or break benchmark for our children today. If you look at Dolly Parton and the Imagination Library in Greenwood County, it serves children 0 to 4, age appropriate, high quality books addressed to each child. They receive these in the mail every month until the child's 5th birthday. Some of the reasons why you want to, if you compare these children to some of the non-participants, they're ready to read. I don't know about you, but I've got 3 brand new grandchildren, 3 years old, 2 3-year-olds. Guess what they want me to do as soon as I walk in their doors? They want me to, they will grab their book and they will bring it to me because they want to sit down with their chief granddaddy and read to me. And it's the way children operate. I thought it was, just because parents took time to give them a book and start reading to them, but it's anyone who picks up a book and reads to that child. And that's why this particular project is so important, because the books comes to that child. It has his name or her name on it. They wait for it. And they look to that day they're going to get that brand new book. And guess what? They'll find somebody to read it to them. So far, when we first started this initiative, there was about 12 children that was able to get these books on a monthly basis. Now, we have 1,600 children served so far, 1,151 children currently enrolled, and 455 have graduated. Our goal is 2,400 children. And so how to help? Make a personal donation. Organize, friends and colleagues to join. The most important thing, I'm out of time, but one of the things that Rotary needs to do is be in touch with your legislators and your senators and representatives so that they understand what really is important for literacy. And if every Rotary group contacts their legislation. And when they begin to introduce this program to the state, guess what? They'll already know about it, and they'll already know the importance of it from you. So with that, you can look and see that you can go online. I've got a brochure for you if you want to see it, and we can talk all day about literacy. Thank you.
Morning. My name is David Hicks. I'm with the Pleasantburg Rotary Club. I'm here to talk to you about a program that we started planning back in 2019. It said that most of the invitation is sincere as form of flattery. This program came by way of the Rio Grande Rotary Club in Las Cruces, New Mexico, which I was a member of years ago. And the idea was kind of ingrained in me and ingrained in my daughter at the time there. And so as we moved around the country and we wound up here and joining this club, my daughter, who is now a junior at Furman, came to the club and said, why don't we do this here in Greenville? This is a great program. Really have an impact on the community in Las Cruces and can here as well. So a little bit about the program. The objective of the program is that we go where there are underserved children and work with partners in order to be able to clothe them. We find the children with the most need to be able to provide them with what ends up being $120 worth of clothing. Long-term effects of this, and taking this from the club in New Mexico, is that the long-term effects increases the child's confidence, increases their ability at school not to get made fun of, increases bullying being reduced, because these children are going to school with holes in their shoes and clothes that don't fit, and they don't look like the other children. So this helps with this. So we partnered with many organizations in town, including, let me jump ahead here. There's some photos of the shopping days. We partnered with Greenville Schools in Cherrydale Elementary School. We worked with their social worker department, and they're the ones who identified 66 children that we were able to spend $120 on. We partnered with Old Navy, who was our shopping partner, who took that $120 and got it down to $100 for us because they offered us discounts for partnering with them. We partnered with, of course, our club, but also other Rotary clubs in the area to provide us with volunteers. We partnered with Furman University and Delta Gamma Sorority to provide us with volunteers as well. The impact of this was not only the 66 students that we were able to clothe, but the 31 volunteers that we had out there who really got their hearts touched by looking at these children in the eyes and seeing a different side of the world that we live in, a side that we don't have to go to every day, but it really opened up our hearts and our minds to that. In addition to those 66 students that were given the opportunity for that personal shopping experience, we also bought spirit shirts for the entire school with them. So not only did we touch the 66 children, but we were able to touch the entire class at that school, which was a fantastic opportunity. The one thing that I'll leave you with, and I think that this is one of the most important parts of the program that we did, is that we had to involve partners. We have these doors behind us, so we use this as a little bit of a metaphor, right? We have to open up doors to new opportunities that are coming from outside of our clubs, that are ideas that are fresh and new to us. And we have to open up the doors to partners in our community. We can't do it alone, and we have to rely on them and bring them into the fold if we're going to, one, make a more of an inclusive effort of including our community, but also creating greater impact with where we live in. Thank you.
Greetings from the Rotary Club of Anderson, located in the beautiful electric city of Anderson, South Carolina. My name is Ben Haygood. I'm the president-elect of our club. I'm standing in for our Rotary president, Cara Hamilton, who unfortunately could not be with us today. One of the million things that runs through your mind as you begin your year as Rotary president is what service project are we going to take on? How are we going to get it done? My job was easy. Last year, we partnered with Homeland Park Primary School to begin an exciting year of projects, visits, interactions with the students, and we had a ton of fun. So let me start the slideshow. All right, here we go. Homeland Park Primary School is located just south of the city of Anderson. Statistically, it is the second most poverty-stricken community in the state. Homeland Park Primary School serves over 400 children from that community from grades 4K to second grade. The Rotary Club of Anderson's partnership with Homeland Park began about a year ago and has become our club's largest community service project. Our club, in partnership with the United Way of Anderson, has been able to provide resources and volunteers that are making a difference. Listen to these statistics. Only 4 years ago, teacher retention was below 70%. This year, retention was 90%. Test scores have improved by 32% in reading and 40% in math this school year. Homeland Park Primary now leads the school district in students meeting their stretch goals on testing. That credit certainly belongs to the teachers and staff, and we believe our partnership with the school has made their jobs just a little bit easier. Now, through the magic of PowerPoint, I'm going to take you on a journey to Homeland Park Primary School. Keep in mind that Carl left me with 21 slides to get through, so this is going to go fast, so pay attention. Back to school, teacher luncheon kind of opened up the year for us, got to let us get to know the teachers at Homeland Park. They do an amazing job. We partnered with Rollco Manufacturing in Anderson to provide masks and face shields for all the children. We also provided umbrellas for the teachers in the drop-off line. In addition to Rotary and the United Way, there were other community partners who have stepped up to help the school. They are listed here. We'd also like to recognize these partners who assisted with gifts for 40 families we adopted at Christmas. Last October, our club members donated hundreds of pairs of socks for the students and participated in their spooktacular. We also donated dozens of books and a whole lot of sports equipment. Homeland Park Primary School celebrates students' birthdays bi-monthly, which wouldn't be complete without a whole lot of cupcakes and the dance party. Here you'll see our Rotary President Cara and Rotary member Liz trying to bust a move. And as always, there's lots of smiling faces. We provided some special recognition gifts for the teachers at Christmas. And these are our Anderson Rotarians at one of our events. Yes, they are smiling behind those masks. The trees just keep on coming at a Valentine's Day party. One of my favorite activities is reading to a classroom full of children. There's always a lively Q&A during and after the reading. And it wasn't until recently that I learned Carol was bringing her dog and others brought treats to loosen up the audience. I'm going to be bringing cupcakes to my next reading. My wife Sally and I partnered up on our reading times. We read such fascinating titles as The Wonky Donkey, The Dinky Donkey, Fossil Coming Knockin', Attack of the Underwear Dragon, and Walter the Farting Dog. Guess which book generated the most discussion? We recently dedicated a beautiful new sign in front of the school, recognizing Rotary and United Way sponsorship of Homeland Park Primary School. Elizabeth Bowen, principal of Homeland Park Primary School, said this about our partnership, and I quote, "Rotary and the United Way's involvement in our school has been so impactful to our students. It shows them that we believe in them. Our school is thriving because of this partnership. These volunteers are our PTO for many parents who cannot be there for their child. End quote. I believe that this partnership has a long way to go. We've got so many things that we can accomplish and will accomplish. And I see us continuing this partnership for many years, hopefully. And I think it does truly demonstrate the Rotary motto of service above self. But yes, the best is yet to come. We are already planning for this coming school year. We have lots of ideas and many things we want to try to accomplish, and it's going to be a blast. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think I got through that in less than 5 minutes.
My name is Scott Powell.
And I am Pam.
Rotary Club of Greenville. We're here to talk to you about our partnership with Alexandria Elementary School. Our club for over 25 years has been Holiday Lights, which is a major fundraiser, which took a tremendous amount of volunteer hours. So once that ended, we really were looking for a volunteer project to engage members. The club historically has been very supportive of education, in particular the Teacher of the Year program.
So why Alexandria Elementary? Well, Alexandria Elementary, as you can see from the stats on the screen, 100% of their students receive free and reduced lunch. Only 7% of the students are academically prepared to start school.
So we had a lot of ideas about how we can support teachers. Pam has been a very dedicated teacher for 31 years. We know how hard it is to be a teacher these days, all that with such high expectations. Being a teacher in a high poverty school requires even more challenges. Not only do you lack a lot of the parental support, there's no PTA there. And think about all the things that a lot of PTAs do for teachers. So we thought, how can we help them? We had some ideas, but the first thing we did was we had a group of 6 or 7 Rotarians and we met with the school. And we met with the principal, the social worker, librarian, and a couple of teachers. And so we know your job is hard. How can we help you? We want to have an emphasis on not just giving them money, but how can we be in the school and support you? So we talked about things that we can do. One of them was just regular lunches. And so we certainly can handle that. We heard about the Happy Feet program, and the Mount Pleasant Rotary Club has done that for years and gave us a lot of great information about how to do that program. We found out that the teachers, they have a backpack program, but on the long holidays, they're really worried about the families having enough food. So we actually found that the teachers were taking up money and buying food to send home to the kids at Thanksgiving and spring break. And so we can handle that. We committed to doing 50 meals for 50 families each one of those holidays. Of course, teachers and school supplies were easy for us to do. It was really sad to hear that they had to cancel field trips because they didn't have enough volunteers. They couldn't get enough parents to come, so they're having to cancel those. So we immediately had people sign up to go on field trips and participate in field days. We were surprised to hear that they didn't have any books for their libraries, and then we'll touch a little bit more about that.
So when the Rotarians met with the teachers, they were pretty shocked with the teachers that, one thing we really would like is for you to jazz up our restrooms. If you know anything about elementary school teachers, they have little time to themselves. They don't eat lunch by themselves or in a teacher's lounge to eat with the kids. And so that was an easy thing for us to do, to brighten up the restroom, provide nice toiletries and artwork for them.
For the last 2 years, we've done Happy Feet program. We're teamed with a local shoe store, and the students were getting vouchers, and so they got to come in and pick out the shoes of their choice. It was great to see the smiles on their face, and of course, they had little brothers and sisters. They did not leave without a pair of shoes. We did meals, teacher meals throughout the year. Sometimes it was a cookout. We did something every month. And sometimes, it'd be a full meal. St. Patrick's Day, there's green milkshakes for all the teachers. Sometimes at a teacher's meeting, we show up with ice cream sandwiches, or at Valentine's Day, we made homemade treats that had parts going around. All the teachers had to choose a dessert of their choice. We had 4 or 5 people year before last when we first started it, agreed to be mentors. And so they went regularly to the school and have lunch with them. The teacher would identify a particular student, and they would sit with that student and kind of get to know them, and just be supportive and be a positive role model for that student. School uniforms are required at Alexandria Elementary School, and for students of poverty, that can be an issue. So some of the students only have 1 or 2 uniforms. The teachers would say, at the end of the school year, they were looking really ragged. A little incident on the playground where a child would just fall and tear his pants, and would become crying hysterical, like, what's wrong? It's just hair. Well, they're worried about what's going to happen when we get home. So they said, can you provide us with uniforms? Absolutely. They have uniforms. We provide uniforms at the school for situations such as that. Hunger is a big issue with them. So we worry about them, not only at holidays, but again, we agreed to provide food for the families.
Our big concern was when COVID hit. We knew that Greenville County Schools would be providing lunches, but the families still have to get to those locations where that food would be provided. So this community also has a robust food pantry, and so we reached out to them, got a needs list, and as safely as we could, we did a canned food drive. It was a drive-up canned food drive. Rotarians came, dropped off goods, made cash donations, and we got to do a great shopping spree with Sam's to supply their community food bank.
So not only do we provide meals for them at those holidays, we also just have meals available at the school, so we continually stock that food pantry. And then we've also done Read to Me, and so your report last, it was great, a lot of fun going into the school, reading to the students. Of course, last year we were not allowed into the school, but the teachers put together lists of books that they wanted. Rotarians would buy those books, and then we set up times for them to virtually read to the students, and donated those books to the classroom. Again, books were something we're surprised to hear that they needed for the library, needed for accreditation. So we have donated hundreds of books to their library. It's a great way for you to recognize someone by buying a book, like at Christmas. You can buy a book in honor of someone, and let's have a Rotarian donate about a Rotary Club.
And you notice the photographer's in the picture there.
We've made, even during the COVID year, we have made a tremendous impact. You can see we have 108 Rotarians volunteer at the school for 514 hours. This is during this year when we can't even get into the school, and for a total impact of students of 1,383. We, as you can imagine, we came very close with the principal, Ms. Nesbitt. Ms. Nesbitt got COVID this past year, and with her severe allergies, was unable to come back to school. So they ended up getting a new principal. And in our May meeting, the teachers made a video thanking us for all we've done. And that principal was there, and she was a little bit reserved. Later that afternoon, a group of Rotarians showed up at the school, and they were packing boxes of food. And they said she really wouldn't look up. Every now and then she would wipe her face. And they said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "Yes, I just can't believe what you're doing for our students." So it is really rewarding for us to know that we're making such an impact. I can't, the future of this program and this partnership is just unbelievable. It's been a great jolt for our club. We've gotten new members because they're excited about this program and all that we're doing, and I just can't wait to see what's going to happen next year once we're able to get back into the school.
I want to thank all the presenters for the wonderful stories of their experiences. And I know that all over the District 7750, all of the clubs do extraordinary work in their communities that they serve. So I want to thank the presenters and also the clubs that volunteered to share their experiences with us, to the Clemson Sunrise, to Reedy River, to Spartanburg, to Emerald City, Pleasantburg, Anderson, and Greenville. We very, very much appreciate what they have been doing.
So you now will be delighted to hear that it's lunchtime, but don't move yet. Two things, two reminders. One is if you would please stay seated and our wonderful Rotarian sergeants of arms will come and tell you when it is time for your table to be able to go. That just preserves order. And you're still sitting. You are so responsible. This is incredible. And the other thing is you'll notice on your table the plastic cart bucket. And you all know, I don't need to tell you what that is for. And tomorrow you'll be hearing a lot more about Alzheimer's and why it is that we always make sure that these buckets get filled as much as possible and how much we can contribute to the research on the Alzheimer's. So please feel free to do that. Thank you, Ron Demonet, for taking out your wallet and instantly putting a bill in there as opposed to coins. Either one is fine. So please enjoy your lunch and bon appetit. We'll restart the program in about 30 minutes.